Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, we're going to implement a route that's going to return a user specific order. So that route is this route, which is /user/order and then the ID of that specific order. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start by copying this route. And then I'm going to go to our order route. So the first thing I'm going to do is to create the route. So I'm going to say this is going to be order router, and I specify the method, which is going to be get. So I'll pass in the route as this because we have a prefix of slash order, so it will be /order/user and then the order ID. So the next thing we're going to do is to specify our function. So I'll say async def, and then this is going to be a get specific order, so I'll just call it get specific order. And then right here, the first thing I'm going to do is to pass in the ID. So we shall say the order ID, or the ID in this case. Let me call this just ID. So I'll come right here and say this is going to be our ID. So our ID is going to be an integer. And then the next thing we're going to do is to go ahead and protect this route. So I'll give in the authorization dependency. So I'll say authorize is going to be equal to auth JWT, and then this is going to be equal to depends. Now after doing this, I'm going to go ahead and try to protect this route. So I'm going to say try, and then what I'll do is to say authorize dot JWT required. So in this case, it's going to be JWT required, since we're going to require JWT to access this route. And then in case we do not have JWT, we're going to accept. So I'm going to write accept, and then I write in exception. We're going to accept any exception as E, and then what we're going to do is to raise an HTTP exception with a status code. So in this case, we're going to have a status code. It's going to be status code, and this status code is going to be status dot, in this case we shall raise HTTP 401 unauthorized, because they are not authorized to carry out this request. So the detail of this will be invalid token. So we're going to write the detail as invalid token. Right after doing this, the next thing we're going to do is to return a user's order. So to do that, we're going to first identify the current logged in user. So I'm going to first fix this, add a comma right here, and then the next thing I'm going to do is to return our current user. So the JWT stores the current user as the subject. So what we can do is to get the current user. So we can actually say subject is going to be equal to, in this case, you can say authorize dot get, and in this case we can get the JWT subject. So this method is going to return the currently logged in user, and it's going to return the username. So what we shall do is to query for that specific user. So in this case, what I'm going to say is current user dot, in this case we shall say actually current user is going to be session. We are going to query for that specific user from our database. So session.query, and then the next thing we're going to do is to specify the model, which is going to be user. And then what we shall do is to get or filter. So we are going to filter. We're going to filter by the username, since the subject equals to the username of the currently logged in user. So what we shall say is user dot username is equal to, so in this case, if the username is equal to the subject, then you want to return the first object. So in this case, what we're going to say is first. So right after doing this, the next thing we're going to do is to return this user's orders. So what I'm going to do is to say, so we're going to say orders is going to be equal to, since you have a relationship between orders and the user, so in this case, when I go back to our models, you have this relationship. So this relationship enables us to access the currently logged in user's orders. So let's go ahead and do that. So orders is going to be equal to current user dot orders. And right after doing this, then we can search for the order that has that specific ID. So in this case, let's try to access that order. So what we can do is to say for O in orders, because now we have the currently logged in users order. So what we can do is if or dot, in this case we get the ID because we have the ID right here. So if the ID is equal to, so in this case if the ID is equal to the ID, then what we want to do is to return that specific ID. So to do that, we are also going to specify our response model. So we're going to say response model. Our response model in this case is going to be our order model. So what we're going to do is to come right here and return that specific ID for an order. So to do that, I'm going to come and say return, and then shall specify, we're going to return, actually what we're going to do is to return that specific order. So I'll just say return order, return all. So what we want to do is to return an order with a specific ID. So right here we have the currently logged in users orders, and if you have an order that is having that ID that we have specified in our URL, we can go ahead and return that specific order. So in case you haven't returned that order, we can also raise an exception. So for example, we can say raise, and then you can raise an HTTP exception, and then you can specify that the status code for this, so you can say status code is going to be equal to status dot http, and then right now we can say 400 bad request. So we can say bad request, and then what we can do is to basically give a detail of this. So I'll put in the detail as, so right here I can say detail is going to be equal to, so no order for current user, actually no order with such ID. So let's just be straightforward. So when I save this, let's try to test it. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Insomnia. So what we've done here is to actually be able to query for a user's orders, and then be able to get an ID that has an order that has the ID that we have specified within our URL. So let's go ahead and test this. I'm going to go to my Insomnia right here. Me first close it. So right now we are in Insomnia. So what I'm going to do is to create a new request. So this new request is going to be for get specific order. So in this case we want to get a specific order, so I'll create this, and after creating this we're going to specify our URL. So I'm going to come and copy this. So I'm going to head over to our Insomnia. And what I'll do is to say localhost. So this is going to be localhost 8000, and then what we shall do is to specify slash orders and then slash the URL. So in this case we're going to provide the ID as, let's say, 1. So if we had sent this, remember our route is protected, so we need to provide our authorization header. So I'll go to the login route and hoping that our server is running. So I'm going to start our server. So I'm going to start the server by saying uvcon so this is going to be uvcon, and then what I'll do is say main, then I'm specifying the app, and then I'll specify that we want our server to reload in case we make code changes. So when I run this, our server is going to start. We need to head over to Insomnia and carry out this request so as to acquire a new JWT. So I'll get the access token, and then after getting the access token, I'm going to go to get a specific order. So I'll go to the headers and then provide the authorization header, and then the value of that is going to be bearer and then the token. So I'm going to send this. Actually, this is going to be slash user slash orders. So when I send this, we have internal server error. So let's try to see what has happened. So right now we have this is HTTP authorize. So let's see. We're going to come. Actually, this is HTTP So this is unauthorized. That is going to be unauthorized. So when I save, our server is going to run. So it's going to reload. And let's go back to our insomnia. So what I'm going to do is to send this request. So now we have detail invalid token. Let's try to see what's happening here. It says authorization. Let's go ahead and first see what's wrong here. So this is going to be unauthorized. So we provided that token right here. Let me first correct this. So we first correct this and acquire the token. So right here we missed the C. I'm actually going to copy this token again and go back to the specific order route. So I'll put in the token once again, and when I send, in this case we are going to see that we have the user does not have an order with a certain ID. So let's get a current user's order. So for example, if I got the current user's orders, so right here I have invalid token. So what I'll do is to come and put in a new token, paste the token. So if I send this, we're going to get the current user's order. So right now we see that the user has an order with the ID of 10. So for example, if I went back and specified our order ID as 10, so when I send this request, we have internal server error. Let's try to see what's wrong. So right here, our response model is actually, so we have a problem right here. For the previous videos, I was using our JSON-able encoder to return our choices, because now to return our orders. And the reason as to why this is happening is because we are having choices within our schema. So right here in our schemas, we specified that this is going to return strings. So if I open for you guys, we have our order. So what I specified is that pizza size and order status are going to be optional strings. And yet we have choices for that. So let's go ahead and fix this. So I'll fix this by going to the order routes, and I'll remove the response model. And instead of saying response model, so what I'll do is to come and use that JSON-able encoder to return that specific order. So what I'll do is to say return, and then what we shall say JSON-able encoder, then I'll pass in the object, which is going to be our order. So if I save and head over to our insomnia, if I send this request once again, we now see that our order has been returned. So in this video, we've seen how to retrieve a user-specific order. Thank you for watching, guys. And if you've liked this video, please go ahead and leave a like, because it helps me out. It means a lot to me. And if you're new to this channel, please subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, guys, and see you in the next video. Bye.